Optical illusion and our eyes. Optical illusion is something that plays tricks on our vision. Optical illusions teach us to show our eyes and brain work together to see. We live in a 3D world, so the brain gets cues about the depth, shading, lighting, and position to help to interpret what we see. We see optical illusions every day. People post examples of optical illusion for fun on internet sometimes. These illusions can happen naturally or they may be created by artists or some illustrators. Let's find out what optical illusion is. Ideally, our eyeballs capture visual information and send it via optic nerves to the brain. There, the brain figures out what it all means as quickly as possible. The eyesight is the end result of it. This is how we see. But sometimes the brain gets more visual information than it can handle, so it makes a guess. An incorrect guess can create an optical illusion. No one is quite sure why people's brains are deceived by these illusions. There are several theories regarding why optical illusions work. One is that rapid eye movements between fixation points, called saccades, can sometimes trick the brain into falsely perceiving the movements. Another theory is that our brain constantly tries to make connections and predictions. Although this is extremely useful for survival, misinterpretation can result when reality does not match our brain's predictions or expectations. Another possibility is that our visual pathways are overloaded by information from an illusion, confusing our brain. How do optical illusions work? Illusions work because the part of the brain that controls vision misinterprets signals the eye sends. When we look at an optical illusion, the light waves reflect off the picture and travel to the back of each eye to the retina, the tissues that perceives light and converts it into signals for the brain. Our brain uses signal from the retina to make conclusions about what we see, and it forms a mental image. This process is called visualization. Sometimes, when the brain interprets a two-dimensional image as three-dimensional, it can trigger an optical illusion. So, this is how optical illusions work. Very fascinating aspect of our brain is that once it understands the illusion, it can no longer be deceived. So once you figure out why an illusion tricked you, it's extremely difficult to trick again, even if you try. How do the eyes and brain work together? This is a very complex process. Once the cells in the retina, called rods and cones, convert the light into electrical signals, these signals are sent through optic nerve to the brain's visual cortex. This is the primary area in the brain where images are processed. Visual cortex interprets the information our eyes send to form an image. Scientists think each nerve cells or neurons handle a particular aspect of an image. All the neurons work together to build our perception of our surroundings. Some neurons provide a more dominant signal to the brain, sometimes falsely, which can influence how we perceive things. It is believed that the processing of visual information may be categorized into two ways. Bottom up, our sight provides visual information and the brain interprets what we see as it actually is. Top down, when we see something familiar, our brain creates a mental image based on the visual information we just received. And in top down, it uses memories to fill in any gaps in our field of view. Ways that our brain fills in the gaps and makes predictions are not all based on the eye's anatomy and brain anatomy. Sometimes they can be based on our cultural understandings of the world, and we have learned about shapes and images during our lifetime. Coming to the types of optical illusions, there are three main categories: literal, physiological, and cognitive. Each takes advantage of different aspects of the eye and brain connections. Literal optical illusion. These are frequently created by combining several different images. Each separate image is clear on its own, but if you shift your focus to the overall figure, the combination of images result in an entirely different image. You can see in this image, as we look into the white part, you can see a different image. When light signals are sent to the brain chooses which portion of the visual information from the eye to concentrate on, so it can focus on the separate unique image or the larger image as a whole. The brain is doing what is known as filling in. Physiological illusions are especially tricky. They cause you to see elements of a picture that aren't there. A repeating pattern overloads the visual system by triggering the same neural pathway, creating the illusion that an image is present when it actually is not. As a result, wherein your eyes land on a picture, you see a version of the repeating image. Hermann grid illusion is a classic physiological illusion. The picture has grids of black boxes and white lines. Look between the boxes where the white lines intersect and you will notice faint sphere-like images. This illusion exploits the visual system ability to process information for contrasting hues. Into cognitive illusions, this circular pattern is an example of a cognitive illusion. The shape is impossible to trace with our eyes because if we try to follow one side, it will bring us to all the other sides. Cognitive illusions depends on our perception of the environment and they can be influenced by our subconscious. They challenge our beliefs about the appearance of the object in the world around us. These optical illusions are an interesting way to learn how our eyes and brain work together to provide information about the world around us. Artists take advantage of the trick that the eyes can play on the brain to create optical illusions. One of the most famous artists known for including illusions in his work is M.C. Escher. You can see in the photograph. Another well-known optical illusion is by physiologist Edwin Boring in his painting My Wife and My Mother-in-Law. The picture represents both a young woman and an old lady, but what you see at first glance depends on your expectation and perceptions of the picture. Artists play with many different aspects of visual processing to distort our impressions. They utilize techniques that impart our perception of color, depth, form, brightness, shadow, and texture. Some of the examples of these visual manipulations include speed, that is, fixed images with a fuzzy appearance are interpreted as moving rapidly because our brain associates blurry images with the movement, as you can see in this picture. Another example is the Ebbinger's illustration, also known as the Tishner circle, plays with our perception of an object's size. How we perceive two circles of the same size can be influenced by whether each is surrounded with bigger or smaller circles. The circles surrounded by bigger circles will typically appear smaller than the ones surrounded by the smaller circles. The example is by Muller layer illusion. Muller layer illusion causes lines of the same length to appear different simply due to the direction of the arrows. As you can see in this picture, the lines are of same size, but the direction of the arrows are different, which causes it to look differently. Another example is shadows. Shadows create depth, and the shading is highly effective way to convey information that translate a two-dimensional picture into a three-dimensional image for the brain. Shadows can also be placed in unexpected patterns to trick the brain. Another example is dimension. Size and distance can be manipulated by using converging lines to represent parallel lines over a great distance. This is a classic scene of a train track disappearing into the horizon. Optical illusions are an interesting way to learn how our eyes and our brain work together to provide information about the world around us. So here are a few examples of optical illusions that you might have seen on internet. Hope you find it interesting, and thanks for watching.